So back in the 1600s, people sincerely believed that eating a potato was this unnatural violation of God's design.
Which is just wild to think about now.
Right, completely wild. But because it grew entirely underground in the dark, they looked at their map of reality at the time and decided it was fundamentally sinister.
Yeah, a dark underground vegetable must be evil.
Exactly. And, today the specific arguments have evolved, obviously, but the underlying accusation, it's exactly the same.
Oh, 100%.
You might make a deeply personal choice about your body or your identity or just how you live your life, only to have someone tell you that your specific action is, like, against the universe's plan.
We're violating divine design, right?
Yeah, and it is just this jarring, heavy accusation. You're just sitting there living your life, and suddenly someone drops the weight of the entire cosmos onto your shoulders.
They're basically telling you that your choices are fracturing the foundation of reality itself.
Which leaves you feeling, fundamentally alienated.
Not just from the person passing that judgment, but potentially from the whole world. You're suddenly framed as, like, a glitch in the system.
A glitch, right. So if you have ever been on the receiving end of that, or honestly, if you've ever felt that protective, judgmental instinct bubble up towards someone else, this deep dive is for you.
It's a really important topic.
It is. We are looking at a fascinating philosophical essay today called The Assertion Paradox. And our mission here is to unpack the actual machinery behind these massive accusations. We're going to explore why human actions cannot technically violate reality. We're going to dig into the vital difference between the map and the territory, and look at why true functionality always emerges from the inside out.
I love this text because it really forces us a step back. It helps you examine the invisible scaffolding that holds up our most intense judgments.
Yeah, it takes the heat out of it.
Exactly. It takes the emotional weight entirely out of the equation and just looks at the literal structure of what happens when one human tells another human they are being unnatural.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the essay starts by examining the foundational premise of these kinds of judgments. It looks at the belief that some human choices are ontologically wrong.
Right, and just so we don't get bogged down in academic jargon, what they mean by ontologically is...
Yeah, clarify that for us.
Well, the text isn't just saying these choices are socially inconvenient or, a matter of bad taste. When they say ontologically, they mean these choices are fundamentally, structurally against reality itself.
Right. When someone claims that an action violates nature, we often just treat it as like a passionate rhetorical flourish.
Just a really strong way of saying, I deeply disagree with you.
Exactly. But the text points out that we actually need to take the literal structure of their claims seriously. Think about the sheer magnitude of what they are saying.
It's staggering. They are making the most massive, audacious claim a human mind can possibly make.
They're asserting that they personally hold the literal rulebook of the universe.
Yes. They are claiming to have accurately perceived the normative structure of reality, entirely independent of human interpretation.
They're essentially saying, I am not interpreting this. I'm just delivering the math of the universe.
I have a direct line to the blueprints. But in truth, what they are actually perceiving is an interpretation of an interpretation.
A very human interpretation.
Exactly. That framework has been passed down through centuries. It was shaped by the specific geographical culture they were born into, heavily edited by the texts they were handed.
And deeply inflected by trauma.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Human trauma, political power struggles, basic survival instincts. They're looking at a deeply human construct, this model built by other humans over generations.
Yet they are absolutely convinced they're looking at raw, unmediated reality.
Which brings up that classic philosophical concept, the map is not the territory.
The map is not the territory. I love that phrase.
The divine standard or the natural law they're so fiercely defending. That isn't the territory of life. It is just a map of life.
And a map drawn by cartographers who were themselves just looking at older maps.
Precisely.
Let me try to ground just how absurd this gets in practice with an analogy.
Go for it.
Imagine going to a restaurant, right? You sit down and you try to eat the physical menu.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're literally just chewing on the laminated paper. And then you see another patron at the next table eating an actual steaming plate of pasta, and you get furiously angry at them.
Because they're not eating paper.
Exactly. You start screaming because their actual physical food doesn't look exactly like the glossy, two-dimensional picture printed on your piece of paper. You're yelling, "You're violating the meal!"
What's fascinating here is that the analogy captures the exact tragedy of the situation. particularly regarding the element of belief.
How so?
Well, the text is incredibly careful to note that this is not a dismissal of anyone's sincerity. The person eating the menu is entirely sincere.
They genuinely think the menu is the food.
Right. Sincere people throughout history have always believed they were defending reality against those who were distorting it. But sincerity doesn't fix the fundamental problem.
Sincerity doesn't magically turn a two-dimensional map into a three-dimensional territory.
Exactly.
If anything, I mean, being that profoundly sincere probably makes the delusion worse. You become impossible to reason with.
The test actually argues that intense sincerity actively blinds a person.
Wow, actively blinds them.
Yeah, the more sincerely you believe you are defending an absolute cosmological truth, the less likely you are to ever pause and examine whether your image of that truth is actually just your own ego.
Just your own cultural projections wearing the clothing of truth.
Right. You become so fiercely protective of the map that you completely lose touch with the actual ground you are standing on. And tragically, you lose empathy for the people actually walking on it.
Which sets up the core concept of the essay perfectly. The title of the piece is The Assertion Paradox.
Because once we establish that these rigid rules about what is and isn't natural are just human-drawn maps, we have to look at how human action actually interacts with the real territory.
How we actually function in reality. And the text proposes this really fascinating lens for this. It states that every single human action is an assertion.
An assertion of existence, yeah.
The essay lists them out, and it covers basically everything. Breathing is an assertion. It is your biological machinery claiming oxygen in space. Speaking is an assertion.
Even remaining totally silent in a room is an assertion of presence.
Right. Traditional rituals are assertions. And crucially, every medical intervention, every complex surgery ever performed, every synthesized compound ever introduced into a human body across all of human history.
Those are all assertions, too.
And here's the paradox the author identifies. If the capacity to act, to choose, to invent, and to adapt is natural to human beings,
Meaning, if we are naturally occurring creatures embedded within reality.
exactly, then distinguishing between actions that are with nature and against nature collapses into total incoherence.
It just falls apart.
Now, wait, I'm going to push back here because I'm struggling with that leap.
Sure, let's hear it.
Breathing is an unconscious instinct. Foraging for berries is a basic biological drive. But taking a synthesized chemical compound or having an artificial valve put into a human heart is a highly engineered, deliberate choice. Doesn't reality draw a line between natural biology and human interference? I mean, one is clearly the domain of nature, and the other is a modern human invention.
That's the intuitive pushback. But here is what the text points out. Drawing that hard ontological line between foraging for a berry and undergoing open-heart surgery requires a very specific assumption about the universe.
What assumption?
It requires you to believe that reality itself contains a structural no.
A structural no.
Yes, it requires reality to issue active cohibitions, to draw a literal line in the sand and say, up to this point of technological or biological adaptation is fine, but cross this line and you have violated the fabric of the universe.
And reality doesn't have a structural no.
Reality, as best as anyone can observe through physics, biology, or philosophy, does not issue prohibitions. Reality only issues consequences.
Just causes and conditions.
Exactly. Think about a river. If you build a massive concrete dam across a river, nature doesn't stand on the banks and declare the dam unnatural or illegal.
It doesn't send you a fine.
Right. It simply processes the new conditions. Water pools, pressure builds, new ecosystems form behind the dam, and downstream environments dry up.
Reality doesn't sit back, judge the action as transgressive, and wait to enforce a moral penalty.
No, it simply continues processing everything that occurs within it as part of what is occurring.
That is a massive paradigm shift. Reality doesn't say no. It just says, okay, these are the new inputs, and then what?
And because reality just continues processing, that entirely shifts the burden of proof. The whole idea of a violation of nature is 100% a human addition.
It's not nature speaking.
Not at all. It is a human mind deciding, based on its own traditions or limits of understanding or emotional comfort, that a certain category of action is somehow fundamentally different in kind from all the other assertions humans make.
It is a human mind trying to borrow nature's booming voice to sound universally authoritative.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If reality isn't the one drawing these arbitrary lines in the sand, who is? Why are humans so utterly obsessed with doing it?
It's a great question.
And the essay points the finger directly at the mechanisms of the human ego. The deepest layer of this whole problem isn't actually about any specific medical choice or who someone marries or how they identify.
Right, it goes much deeper.
It is about the ego's recurring conviction that it can identify true functionality for other people.
To understand why the ego does this, we have to look at how the human brain processes uncertainty. The brain evolved as a prediction engine.
It wants to know what is going to happen next so it can keep the organism safe.
Exactly. When life is chaotic, when people make choices we don't understand, or when bodies exist in ways that challenge our deeply held predictive categories, the ego registers that not just as confusing, but as a physical threat.
Wow, a literal physical threat.
Yes, it hates that discomfort. It craves a tidy, predictable world where everything stays in its assigned box.
But the ego can't just walk up to someone and say, hey, the way you are living your life is confusing to my prediction engine and makes me personally uncomfortable. Please stop.
Because the other person would just laugh and say, well, that sounds like something you need to work through on your own.
Right. My personal preference lacks the leverage to force you to change your life.
So the ego constructs a framework to justify its discomfort and give it teeth. It borrows the heaviest, most unimpeachable language it can find.
Words like nature, God, the soul, divine design, universal truth.
It dresses up its personal biological anxiety as a cosmological fact. When we adopt absolute frameworks, our brains literally release neurotransmitters that simulate safety and control.
It just feels really good to believe you are the one holding the universal rulebook.
It feels incredibly safe.
And what's so fascinating about the author's argument here is that no ideology is immune to this mechanism. The essay makes a striking point to show this isn't just a critique of, like, conservative or traditional frameworks.
Not at all.
Modern, progressive, and New Age spiritualities do the exact same structural thing. And just to pause here, we're not taking sides, we're just impartially reporting the text's analysis of human behavior.
Right, we are just looking at the architecture of the arguments. The text highlights how a conservative religious framework might claim a divine design to restrict human choices regarding reproduction or medical care.
Okay, yes.
But simultaneously, a New Age spiritual framework might claim a soul contract or a natural energetic alignment to oppose vaccines or certain medical interventions.
Both sides are making the exact same move on the chessboard.
They are structurally identical. Whether the borrowed authority is a traditional bearded god in the sky or a modern concept of the universe's frequency, both frameworks are claiming exclusive interpretive access to a metaphysical standard.
And then both use that claimed access to draw a boundary around what is acceptable for human self-determination.
They're using different vocabularies, but it is the exact same ego-driven architecture of control.
It is the menu eating all over again, just happening at different restaurants.
That's a perfect way to put it.
And to be absolutely clear to you listening, the text isn't weighing in on the existence of a soul or a creator. We certainly aren't either. It is simply pointing out the very observable human behavior of weaponizing those concepts.
Right. It means that so much of the intense ideological warfare we see daily is just different collective egos clashing over whose map is the real one.
While totally ignoring the actual territory of human suffering and flourishing.
Exactly.
But, I mean, if none of these maps are the actual territory, that leaves us in a pretty terrifying spot. If we can't trust external rules to tell us what is objectively natural, how on earth are we supposed to navigate? How do we make choices?
The essay answers this by introducing the concept of interiority.
Interiority.
The idea is that each human being is a highly specific, totally unique configuration of consciousness and biology. And no external framework, no matter how ancient, how popular, or how beautifully written, has the necessary resolution to perceive what is actually going on inside you.
Resolution is the critical metric here, right?
Yes. An external framework is like a satellite image. The satellite can show you the broad shape of a continent, the general location of the mountains and the plains.
Yeah.
But a satellite image cannot tell you what it feels like to walk on the ground in a specific forest at dusk.
It completely lacks the granular data.
Exactly. No tradition, no ideology, no grand philosophical theory can feel what it feels like to be you, living in your specific body with your specific history and your specific neurochemistry.
Therefore, no external framework has the resolution to definitively say what is life-affirming versus what is self-destructive for your specific consciousness.
Only the person living the experience has access to that interiority.
Yeah.
Only you have the ground-level data.
Let me evolve that weather app analogy we hear sometimes to picture this difference in resolution.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine you are sitting inside your house, right next to a roaring fireplace. You are toasty, you are comfortable, you are safe.
Sounds nice.
Right. But there is someone standing outside your house in the freezing snow, staring at a weather app on their phone.
And the app is their external framework.
Exactly. And they are screaming through the window at you, insisting that you must be freezing to death because their app says it's 20 degrees.
Wow.
But it's not just that they are looking at the app. Their ego is terrified that if your fire is real, their app is broken. And to save their app, they would rather demand you open the windows and freeze.
That's a chilling image, literally. The person outside is prioritizing the survival of their map over your direct, lived reality.
Exactly.
This is where the text makes a vital distinction. It does not argue for nihilism. It does not say that all choices are equal or that consequences don't exist.
It's not saying anything goes.
No. It says that the authority to navigate those choices structurally belongs to the one living the life.
Because you are the only one sitting by the fire. You are the only one who possesses the sensory equipment to feel the heat.
When you use your internal feeling, your lived experience, and your own capacity for reason to guide you toward what is life-giving and away from what diminishes you, that is navigation.
You are navigating your own territory.
Yes. But when someone else takes their interpretive map, claims it as universal law, and tries to force it onto your interiority, the text calls that colonization dressed in philosophical clothing.
Colonization dressed in philosophical clothing, that cuts right to the bone of it.
This raises an important question regarding our history. How much damage has been done over the centuries by collective egos mistaking their interpretive map for someone else's territory?
Just unimaginable amounts of damage.
How much suffering has been caused by people standing in the snow, demanding that the people inside put out their fires, simply so the world matches the weather app?
Entire histories, really tragic histories, are written about that exact kind of colonization. People demanding that you conform to their map, and if you don't, utilizing the power of the state or the church to punish you for supposedly violating the universe.
Which brings the essay to its final and perhaps most grounding realization. Despite all this noise, despite all the yelling and the map waving, reality itself is completely safe.
The relief in this final section of the text is just palpable. Reality is not fragile.
No, it's not.
The universe is not a house of cards that is going to collapse because a human being makes a medical choice or loves someone outside a prescribed boundary. It does not need philosophical protection from us.
Think about the staggering arrogance required to believe that your human action could somehow destabilize the foundation of the cosmos.
It's incredibly egocentric.
Right. If true functionality is real, if there is a grain to the universe, it is already operating. It was operating billions of years before we started arguing about it, and it will operate long after we are gone.
It is the solid ground upon which all our little philosophical arguments and map-making are taking place.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? It means that when someone is fiercely defending their framework, getting angry at your choices, what actually feels threatened and needs defending is never a reality.
Reality is perfectly fine.
What needs defending is always just their ego's model of reality. They are terrified that if you are allowed to just exist and flourish outside their categories, their map will be proved useless.
And losing the map is a kind of psychological death for the ego.
But for the person actually living the life, true functionality doesn't come from enforcing a map. True functionality emerges from the inside of lived experience.
It always has. It is the irreducible, undeniable reality of a living being functioning in the present moment, undisturbed by the abstract arguments taking place on the surface.
It is the profound realization that you don't have to defend reality, and you certainly don't have to live by someone else's map of it. You just have to navigate your own territory.
Beautifully said.
As we reach the end of this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we have just unpacked. Think about the sheer amount of mental, emotional, and physical energy you currently spend either trying to conform to other people's maps of reality or, let's be honest, the energy you spend trying to force others to conform to yours.
It's exhausting.
It really is. If you suddenly reclaimed all of that energy, if you stopped trying to eat the menu and stopped yelling at others for eating the pasta, what could you actually build, discover, or experience with that entirely liberated energy? What does your life look like when you stop worrying that your deepest personal choices are breaking the universe and realize you are just sitting by your own fire?